Okay, so the absolute foundation of all of this is the math. And honestly, the beautiful thing here is that the math is not complicated at all. But before we get into the actual journey, we have to talk about the rule that makes the whole thing tick. It's called the 4% rule. Backed by around 30 years of deep financial research, this is the safe withdrawal rate that a well-diversified portfolio can basically sustain indefinitely. Put simply, if you want to retire at 40, you need exactly 25 times your annual expenses invested away in assets that grow.
Let's actually map out that 25 times multiplier, because a pretty obvious pattern emerges. Say you spend 40 grand a year. You're going to need $1 million. If you spend 60 grand, you need 1.5 million. And if you're spending 80 grand a year, you need $2 million. Notice how your target number isn't just some random fixed lottery amount. It's entirely a ratio. Your expenses completely dictate your target. Your target dictates your timeline. Nay, your timeline is the one thing you actually have control over. Most folks spend their whole lives stressing over how to bump up their income while completely ignoring the denominator, their expenses. The people who actually pull off retiring at 40, they realize super early on that the denominator is, hands down, the fastest lever you can pull.
All right, so now that we've got the math down, let's rewind a bit. Flashback to the starting line. You're 22 years old. You just graduated, you landed a real job, and honestly, for those first 6 months, your savings rate is exactly zero. You're buying a comfy new couch, a nicer TV, and you're doing Friday dinners out with friends because, hey, it was a long week and you feel like you totally earned that $18 cocktail. And you're not doing this because you're reckless. You're doing it because literally nobody told you that this very first year is quietly setting a super dangerous pattern for the next 18 years of your life. The lifestyle you accidentally build at 22 is the exact lifestyle you'll be forced to fund for the next 2 decades. But then, something shifts. It's November, and maybe a financial explainer like this one really struck a nerve. You go online, and you open a brokerage account. You deposit $200, and man, it feels entirely insignificant. I mean, in terms of pure dollars, it kind of is. But conceptually, it is fundamentally critical because of what it kickstarts. The gap between retiring at 40 and grinding until you're 65 is almost always decided before your 25th birthday. It's decided by the savings habit you lock in right now, during these early earning years. Jump forward 3 years, and you're suddenly looking at 2 completely different realities. Think about your coworker for a second. You guys got the exact same raise at age 24. Well, your coworker immediately upgraded his apartment, leased a newer car, and started buying expensive lunches every day. And he's not doing anything maliciously wrong. He's just blindly following this cultural script that says when you earn more, you spend more. His lifestyle is always going to eat up whatever his paycheck brings in. Now contrast that with your path. You decided to take that entire raise and just invest it. You're driving the same car, eating the same packed lunches. And because you treated that raise as rocket fuel for your portfolio instead of a lifestyle upgrade, you've got $18,000 invested by the time you're 25. You actively protected your margin. Now, I gotta be real with you. This journey is absolutely not a perfectly smooth ride to the top. Let's fast forward to age 28. It's February, and bam, there's a 10% market correction out of nowhere. Your portfolio drops $6,500 in just 3 weeks. Back at the office, everybody's acting like the sky is falling. One guy is panic selling everything to cash, which means he is guaranteed to miss the eventual recovery. So what exactly do you do when the market decides to test you like this? You do absolutely nothing. Zip. Zero. And honestly, this isn't about being brave, it's about pure emotional discipline. You deeply understand that a market correction isn't a threat to the plan. It literally is the plan working the way it's supposed to. You're just buying assets at a discount now. Emotional neutrality isn't the same as not caring. It's intense discipline wearing the mask of indifference. Remember, you aren't investing for next month's vacation. You are investing for a Tuesday 12 years from now. The people out there panic selling, they're simply the ones who forgot the timeline of what they were actually building. Let's keep moving forward and see how this snowballs. Because eventually, if you just hold steady, you hit this absolutely critical inflection point, $160,000. Most people never ever see this number because they stopped at 40 grand to buy a fancy SUV or at 80 grand for a down payment on a house way out of their budget. But if you hold the line at $160,000, something pretty magical starts happening. Your portfolio essentially transforms into a second employee. It starts contributing real, meaningful cash to its own growth. It starts pulling its own weight.
Just think about what that second employee actually brings to the table. If we assume a totally standard 7% average annual return, that $160,000 is generating roughly $11,200 in a single year, and you didn't lift a finger to add a cent of that. That is practically a full month of your salary, magically produced by the account itself while you're at work, while you're watching Netflix, and literally while you sleep. That compounding effect everyone always talks about so abstractly, it is now doing very real, heavy financial lifting on your behalf.
So you just keep your head down. Your main job now shifts from building this wealth machine to simply making sure you don't break it. You hit age 34, the number is sitting at $340,000. Earning that 7%, it's tossing off roughly $23,000 a year in growth. If your annual expenses are carefully kept at $46,000, your account is seamlessly covering half of your entire life's overhead, and that's not even through withdrawing it, just through pure growth. At this stage, retiring at 40 stops being this cute little goal and becomes a hard, mathematical projection. You don't even need motivation anymore. You just need basic maintenance. You're just managing something that already has unstoppable momentum.
3 years later, boom, you're 37. The account hits $780,000. Now, the math says you could technically walk away from your job today. The portfolio can sustain itself. But you don't. You make this really critical calculated choice to keep working for exactly 3 more years. Why? Because the difference between $780,000 and your final goal isn't about buying a boat, it's about margin. It's the massive shift from a portfolio that is merely sufficient, meaning, yeah, you can survive a pretty good market, to one that is comfortable, meaning you can easily sleep through a totally terrible market. You grind for 3 more years just to build a comfortably thick concrete floor beneath you.
And this is where things get really crazy. Just look at the rapid acceleration in those final years. That jump from 37 to 40 is massive. This is where compounding is just showing off, doing its absolute heaviest lifting. The math is just relentlessly doing what math does, and that projection is literally pulling you across the finish line like a magnet. You learn to trust a process that has been humming along for over a decade without needing a single dramatic, life-altering decision from you. And all of that brings us to the very last day, the final Friday. It's 5:17 p.m. You're sitting in your car in the company parking lot, and honestly, it feels quieter than you expected. Let's run the exact numbers for that totally unremarkable Friday. Your portfolio total sits at $1,240,000. Applying your super safe 4% withdrawal rate, that gives you $49,600 a year to live on. Because you've kept your annual expenses tightly controlled at $46,000, you are left with a mathematically sound, rock-solid safety margin of $3,600. The 18-year projection totally worked, and on the portion you aren't withdrawing, the portfolio just keeps on growing.
So, Monday rolls around, and there is no alarm clock. You make some coffee, you watch people rushing off to somewhere they have to be, and then it's Tuesday, 10:14 in the morning. Your bench is right there in the sun. Somewhere across the city, someone is stressing out in a meeting, presenting slides, calculating how many Mondays they have left until they're 65. But you did that exact arithmetic 18 years ago, quietly, alone in a spreadsheet. This absolute freedom, it wasn't luck. It wasn't because you have a special personality. It was just the sheer arithmetic outcome of your savings rate, time, and your refusal to mistake lifestyle inflation for actual progress. That Tuesday was always available to you. So I want you to really think about that for a second. If that quiet Tuesday is purely a product of math, and that math is freely available to absolutely anyone willing to calculate it, what is actually stopping you from running your own numbers tonight?